Hello and welcome to CIO News. I am Khushbu, Soni, host for the broadcast and chief editor at CIO News. This is our exclusive interview series powered by Goto, and it is a recorded session and will be available on our website, that is ciunews.co.in, and our CIO News LinkedIn handle. It is my pleasure to invite our guest for today. We have Mr. Anil Nama, the Chief Information Officer from CtrlS. Mr. Nama brings 3 decades of experience in IT and in defense and corporate sectors. His career started with armed forces and associated with CNO, the Computer Network Offense, and CND, the Computer Network Defense. Post-defense stint, Mr. Nama has worked with Airtel IDC initiative, currently known as Nextra Data. He also served in AKS IT services as the principal InfoSec consultant. Mr. Nama, it is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
I'm also accompanied by Triveni Rabindraraj, the India sales head from Goto. Triveni has 2 decades of experience working with various brands such as Wipro, Citi, Dun & Bradstreet, and many more. Triveni, pleasure to have you as well.
Thank you.
Okay. So to begin with on our today's discussion, I wanted to put across the first question to you, Mr. Nama. Given the demands of today's distributed workforce, it's become imperative to scale, up and arm the IT teams with the right tools. What have been the demands of your IT ecosystem on this front?
So, if we see, COVID has taught us many things. When COVID started, uh, prior to that, most of people used to work from a fixed location. And from a budget perspective, the fight was on to bring the lowest cost of IT to our end users. During COVID, overnight, things changed. There was a crisis, people had to respond. So things became continuity. A lot of devices were purchased. You had collaboration tools like the one we are using, Zoom or Teams coming into the play. A lot of SaaS was purchased wherever there was dependencies on Excels or Word files. Those are all moved to as soon as available SaaS platforms, and the budgets were given to make and ensure that the enterprise runs. As we see the post-COVID era, there has to be a mix and merge of the key learnings during the COVID inculcated with what we were doing previously.
Right.
There are 2, 3 statements of truth which still remains. Number one, it now seems that we had neglected the front office, which means our people who go to customer sites or who roam around, they were sort of created a roaming profile, and it was not a true hybrid experience for them as we could now envisage post-COVID. The second is the data no longer belongs to a central so-called vault or an application. There is a plethora of applications which are available. So the innovation or the productivity of a business process or a department should no longer be bottled down just because you have some central piece of software and you try to achieve your ends through it. The third is traditional controls, like the way we used to have NAC, network address control, when you come to the office, or a user identification based just on a username, because you were sitting in your building and you had already physically verified that it was the authorized users group only which is residing in a LAN. So those controls now need to change to a different threat perspective, where my laptop could be worked upon by my children, or maybe from my home, somebody takes my laptop, I am also not aware, and it is utilized at another place. Or maybe the application SaaS that I am using may or may not conform to the level of the criticality of data that I produce. Because from a SaaS example, it's just a utility thereof. the which is happening in terms of intelligence. What tools we are looking at presently? So from a change perspective, maybe earlier a VPN and an AD password would work good enough in an office environment. Now, first of all, you have to find out whether that laptop has some local information which is business critical. And how do you safeguard that information? Because this particular device will move around. Second, in case there was an issue with an IT device or an IT software because it was under a single roof, you went to the help desk, there was some IT guy coming over helping you. Now, how do you troubleshoot it in remote? How do you actually handle failures or upgrades or changes out there when people are sitting at their homes? And how much accessibility there is? The third is, of course, about the user and his geolocation. So if a laptop is actually taken away from my home to another home, so like the way we had NAC controls in our office, can I actually identify, can I allow a worker to say that, okay, you can work from location B, A, which is your home, you can work from location B, which is maybe a WeWork office, and maybe not allowed from location C. The desktops or the laptops do not carry this geo information. And therefore, somewhere it has to be married with the device or a geo available device that he carries, mostly mobile, a smart mobile, can give us that information. So these are the challenges that are with us. And then, of course, there is the age-old issues of the user life cycle, data life cycle, and all those best practices that we had pre-COVID has also to be integrated into this week. So for me, an ideal tool would be which can, giving this as a wish list, can A secure me? Can B help me troubleshoot my user at his location, at his convenience? And C, give me enough peace of mind that whatever are the issues which are happening at a user level are not affecting the business productivity overall from a org perspective. So that's my view of a tool that helps.
Absolutely. I think when kind of considering the priorities for evaluating these technologies, these are the top parameters that are considered by the CIOs, and security always being on the top recently, right? So, Triveni, what are your thoughts? You know, you've been interacting with a lot of CIOs in the last couple of years. What have you seen? What should be the top priorities when considering these remote support solutions?
Yeah. Thanks, Khushbu. A very relevant question that you've asked me. I would definitely be happy to share some of the essentials on how do we choose a remote support solution for today's challenges, right? And this really, whatever I'm going to talk, right, comes from a rich experience that we as a Goto company have from implementing the remote support tools, not from today or not from the pandemic, but from 2003, right? Like I said, we were born in cloud and we were born as a remote support company. So probably we started this even when the term remote or hybrid was completely alien to us, right? So some of the main things that we can look for is, I would categorize it into the first and the foremost being what or should be the core functionality, and then comes usability. Then, of course, the even Anil sir spoke about security and dependability, and finally, what could be the deployment models, right? So, I may go a little, overboard with the answers. So, in case if I'm running too much, Joe, show me a timeout, right? Purely because I sell remote support for a living. I'll keep it very neutral, nothing related to our product. But I think from a core functionality perspective, right, most of the remote solution solutions provide some of the common stuff, remote polling, remote screen sharing, file transfers, And it allows your technicians also to perform routine support tasks, right? But some of the I think advanced support tasks that we can look at is, the first one is the quick diagnostics, right? Not many remote support tools were built to handle BYOD devices. Like Mr. Nama said that, overnight people had to, like, look at their home computers, because a lot of them could have left the computers in the office premises. So supporting these tabs and, your laptops and your phones became a pretty important thing, right? So your technicians should be able to check essential technical data automatically, which speeds up the troubleshooting, because if the speed is not taken care, then it sort of increases the frustration when the support when the customers, or for that matter your internal employees, are reaching out to the support team, right? Because earlier a support technician would probably be sitting in the second floor of your premises. You just give him a call or just ping on an instant messaging and they could come running. That luxury is not there anymore. The other one is the unattended machines, right? So machine access. Now, being able to remotely support both the servers and the end users at any time is really a requirement now, right? And the other thing that is spoken about, obviously, in the last 2 years is the employee well-being, and employee being burnt out, stressed out. So this unattended machine access could probably help the technicians to access even when the employees are on a break. So it doesn't put the demand on the employees to be in front of the system while the remote support sessions are on. The third one is multiple sessions, right? I think the multiple session handling capability will reduce a lot of a burden from your technicians, because you'll not have a long queue of calls or tickets waiting for the technicians attention. The other one is mobility. This again I've already mentioned. Capability to support the mobile devices. It could be Android or iOS seamlessly is definitely something that one needs to look for in today's world. The other one, which is extremely important for us to collaborate our internal systems, which is the integration piece, right? So look at probably looking at what are the kind of out of the box integrations that are available. What are the APIs that is API capability of the tool. The other one is something related to collaboration, right? How effectively, because not all questions or all issues can be handled by the help desk employee, right? There are, like say, for example, if there is some hardware issue, there have been instances where the technician needs to collaborate with the hardware vendor to sort out the issue. So how easily does the remote support tool help those third-party collaboration, or even collaboration between your L1, L2, L3? Those kind of aspects are becoming very key looking at today's hybrid environment. And then finally, the administration, right? The administration capabilities in terms of allowing the administrator to assign issue based on technician expertise, right? Create escalation level, probably set permissions to ensure compliance. And then, how effectively the admins are able to monitor this technicians and able to conduct the employee satisfaction or the experience surveys. I think the other bit, of course, I'm not going to speak too much about security because we all know it's important, and probably, I will take a lot of time there, but looking at security is also pretty important, like in terms of end-to-end encryption. Is it AES 256-bit encrypted? Do we have not only two-step verifications, but multi-factor authentication? How secure are the connections? Because these are technician-arised, sessions, right? So how effectively are we, sort of having it? Can we have a customized page or a customized login for our employees, not, really looking at a third-party website? So these are some of the, critical factors, right? To just summarize, I think workplaces will continue to trend virtual or hybrid, right? So what becomes very important is the remote, how effectively remote desk, remote help desk technicians are helping the employees solve their issues faster, and I think in the first call. So these metrics are very important. First call resolutions, handling time. So when looking at a remote support solution, it's always good to look at these metrics, because this, at the end of the day, I think when we look at the infrastructure, these are some of the metrics that you will be sort of measuring internally.
Absolutely. Very well articulated and highlighted, Triveni. Awesome. My next question is for you, Mr. Nama. Having a tool with the right priorities met is one of the half challenges, accomplished. The other half is driving enough adoption to meet ROI standards. So, what are your driving forces when it comes to achieving optimal ROI?
ROI or a business case justification is always present in each and every purchase that we do. That's part and parcel of it. What I could pick out from the previous conversation by Triveni, there are a few factors also relevant to us. For example, let's take a simple case of a person working at home and moving from password to a multi-factor authentication where there is no form in which you give the password. So people cannot take away the password. You could use an SMS or even better a Windows authenticator or some authenticator in your mobile. And it gives a code. So basically you have the device, you have another device, and you have the person. So I don't use a password and therefore nobody can impersonate me. That gives a very great relief, both from a risk perspective as well as from an admin perspective, because now suddenly you can make passwords as good as 100 characters. It is machine generated. So yeah, absolutely that issue is resolved. The second consideration, of course, is from a ransomware or a back of protective. So when we talk about ransomware, it's nothing. Somebody gets access inside your machine and tries to find out if it's a good data, he can get some money, and then play a ransom. I mean, it's like kidnapping case, normal kidnapping case, right? Now, the tools or the ports that we open, for even for our admin access or even for our maintenance access, that also in a strict sense is opening a door inside. So basically, the tool, how does it contact the machine? Is there possibility that maybe it may be misused by other means of purposes, right? That's the second consideration when purchasing these type of tools. A price for these two don't matter because this is must have. I mean, you are moving away from passwords and you need to ensure that whatever is the machine that you are using, because user is working on it, we are giving him with that access enabled, that backdoor installed, if you want to understand that. The gate is open, right? So these two are not consideration for price. The price over and above on this ROI would be the ease of troubleshooting. I mean, how much features could I get? For example, can I roll in a operating system patch? Can I also roll out a new version of the application? Maybe could I lock the device? Maybe like MDM, could I securely delete the data? Then for my troubleshooting, what is the type of enriched data feed that I get? Do I get only that this is running, this is not running? Or along with it, do I also get some more diagnostics, which helps me in resolving my end user's issue much faster? Maybe some more intelligence like testing of connections from end user to the apps. So because it's the central apps that he's not able to work at, right? It may be because of some network device, driver, connectivity. It may be because of some issue in the application. So as we go granular, to start with the basics, and then as we go granular, as you enrich this data system, the faster response or a better response you can give for any interruptions. So when we create a ROI matrix, you can think of it as buying silver, gold, platinum. So what is my silver? I mean, silver is absolutely necessary, which are the two, three factors which I told, right? Then maybe on the gold part, can I do a more enriched feed from the machine itself? What all can it give? And maybe on the platinum part, could it also help me troubleshoot an end user's whatever is the environment he is facing, recreate that environment from a server side of app side of the issues. And that's how the ROI then boils down. So a very simple thing, what I would do here is keep the mandatory aside, look at my last 6 months of tickets and say, boss, how many of silver platinum that we have troubleshooted? Now we have 2 years of experience. So within that range, what is the percentage that I absolutely want to nail? And what is the percentage that is wished for? And that sort of creates my matrix. Now against this matrix, then I would approach Triveni, and then I would ask her what are the features of her tool, plot it as such, and then create my proposal for my management saying that if you, this is mandatory, without this, you can't run the business. With this is the end user experience, or this is the level of interruptions that will go down. And if you give me everything, then what this is the outcome, and this is how we could measure. So that's the way we go about creating ROIs and the price justification of such.
If I
Awesome.
may just add,
Yes.
Anil sir, I think what you have just shared is nuggets of gold, because very well articulated, specifically for, coming from the IT sales background. We don't get to hear this on a, normal meeting. So I think I would want to play this to my entire team and say, look, this is what an CIO thinks like, right? So really, thanks for that.
Thank you.
Very, very true. I think very well articulated. And, I think it's a great idea, in fact, to, kind of categorize them and then evaluate, right? So awesome. Triveni, in your conversation, and Mr. Nama also highlighted a lot around the security perspective. So my question is next around that. So security being one of the top priorities across organizations, what are the standards by which an IT support tool should adhere?
Yeah. So again, I think a very, very relevant topic for today's, the kind of business environment that we're working in, right? And the more and more we have gone virtual and hybrid, I think the more malicious actors, it's become a field day for them, right? And the increase in cyber criminals also, they say, has almost gone, like some 50% more than what it was before pandemic. In one of the researches that we also used to have a stack of IAM products, which obviously now is not a part of our company. So through that, we have done a couple of these researches during the pandemic, right? And specifically one investigation report that came out in 2021, it clearly said that 85% of whatever data breaches has happened in the recent past, right? 85% has had a human element, right? It could be phishing, it could be stolen credential, any human error. Like, Anil sir very rightly pointed out that the misuse of the password, right? A lot of places where passwords are, simplified passwords, right? Like they did a survey last year, and can you guess what was the most commonly used password across the world? Can Anil sir or you guess, Khushbu? Commonly used password across the world. It was password 123.
Oh,
One,
yeah.
two, three, four.
I just thought it'd be either 1, 2, 3, 4 or something like that. I mean, it's always us.
Yeah, so it was password 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And what is becoming is, if you actually see, take any recent breaches that has happened, okay, like the Kaseya one, or the Verifone one, all of them have been because of compromised credentials. So the emphasis of using a stronger password is very important, right? So what the cybersecurity professionals know, or the leaders advise is that it is not important that your password needs to be strong. That what I mean is, when I say strong does not equate to, use a ampersand sign, use a dollar sign, use a underscore sign. No, that is easier for the for the cyber criminals to, or the hackers to crack it. What makes it more difficult is the lengthier your password is, right? It could be a simple one with just, alphanumeric characters, but the longer it is that much more harder. So in my company, what we have done is, since last year itself, we have an IT policy where your access, right, password has to be minimum 18 characters minimum, and having a password vaulting will also help, because that will enable passwordless, right, in terms of having a single sign-on and having applications, all your central applications on a single sign-on. And also, like Anil sir mentioned, the multi-factor authentication, right? It's just not about a code and a phone, but also maybe like, your fingerprint, your face reading, all those becomes very, very important in the multi-factor authentication. Besides that, from a remote support perspective, I think one thing that is very, very important, right, is the admins should have 100% control over everything the agents can or can't do during a remote support session, right? It should also support, agent administrative access to a remote machine to, resolve issues. You should have the audit trails and reporting, etc. Right? And a lot of, if you look at, industries which are heavily regulated, like your speed banking, or BFSI or healthcare, there, in fact, the regulators have issued certain circulars in the last 6 months, what kind of remote support tool they need to avoid using, because that remote support tool is used mostly by the criminals to fake a remote connection, right? We've seen these guys doing that, and there are certain named tools through which they do that. So especially in the Indian banking system, RBI had sent a circular that this cannot be used, right? The other one is also the connection methods, right? Because you know that your employees are virtual now. So, how do you know it's the right kind of person that you're talking to, or it is the right person, right? The identity also matters a lot. But what also matters is, how can you secure that connection? So, look at some secure connection methods. Do you have a self-hosted PIN page, or like say a company PIN code validation, or even say have a restricted IP access, restricted domain access? Those kind of stuff, I think will, extremely be critical. And of course, right, vendors like us need to have all sorts of security compliance certification in place, right? Are we GDPR compliant? Are we HIPAA compliant for the, medical industry, etc.? Those kind of certifications become very critical, right? In the past 2 years, what I have seen as a seller change is, CIOs like Anil sir asking us not a lot about the features, right? Because that's a known fact, but what kind of security, what's our security infrastructure? What is the security compliances that we have, etc.? So the emphasis is more and more on security today.
Right. Awesome. My next question is, Mr. Nama, for you. Is your IT help desk fully empowered and, to provide fast and efficient support for the current flexible ways of working today and into the future? So if you can throw some light on that.
Difficult question. So, is it fully empowered? I mean, from a policy side, yes. Do we have good feedback? Yeah. Over the last 2 years, we have risen from a DSAT or a CSAT rating out of 5 from 3.8 to last 6 months, we have been running at 4.85, 4.86. But does it fulfill the needs? Answer is no, because the technology is so fast changing. There is always a lot of scope of it. So it's a head or a tail. I mean, when you look at from an IT help desk perspective, given the tools, given the situation, they're doing a very good job. When you look at from a business perspective and its roadmap, I mean, there's a lot of things to be done to it. Like the way Triveni ji talked about the passwords or the audit trails. Now the new thing that is coming up is, let's say a total hybrid user is working on a business app which is totally cloud hosted. How do you have a control? Or can that IT do now management to be upgraded to also give me trails of the tools which are not hosted or under my administrative controls, so that I could relay all my policies or my compliances and the audit trails in place. Even better wish list could be, could it also go to the level of making a copy? So we have all heard about big data. Now let's say, for a simple example, I'm using a SaaS application and we know companies go bust, right? And let us say that company goes bust. For whatever reason, that application is not available. So could this tool again collect the actual data which are created by my users and bring them to some sort of central repository? You can think of it as an object-oriented storage, S3 service or something. But the tool mirrors it so that I as a CIO or my management sits peaceful thinking that whatever is the data created, we also have another copy of it at another place. Now, this is a different way of looking at the same management tool, which is not only restricted to troubleshooting, but maybe going a slightly more in a proactive manner and trying to create the most important thing of data economy, which is data, giving us a data resiliency. Because theoretically, if such a thing is possible, then a ransomware attack does not affect, because I have another copy of the data. I am immune, or as an org, I can experiment with multiple sites. Today, I may be restricted like a Gartner Q1 tool to only go with the likes of Salesforces of this world or Zogos of this world, right? I may not be experimenting with the new startups, the latest innovation which is coming in my area. So, given the tool set today, the capabilities, yes, it is as good as yesterday. Given the tool set and its capabilities and looking at the horizon next 2-3 years, no. There is a lot of things that we need to think only under this category of management, and then bring in the risks that we actually want to mitigate. It's not about break fix. It's not that I can't talk and can we break fix it. It's not my hard disk has gone bad, break fix it. But can we actually risk mitigate? People have not thought about this question, but if you think long enough, you will understand that this is the root cause of disruption. I mean, when a Ola Uber came or a Airbnb came, it is not that the symptoms wouldn't have gone to the existing enterprises, but because they were so risk averse because of the public money invested, or whatever you can say, because of their risk postures, they're not able to experiment. Today, in a cloud world where businesses grow overnight and businesses shut down overnight, this type of enhancement would give companies or organizations like us to experiment more, because we will not only be looking after the failure of the devices, but we will also be resilient to failure of platforms itself. And that could open a new chapter in the way you look at the way we are trying to empower our business users to reach their productivity. You would increase it to also maybe enhance their innovation, maybe harvest the latest trend as soon as possible in line with their business, and make overall the business much more resilient, because you could now experiment much more. So that's the outlook. I mean, two sides of the coins. but that's the way it is.
No, absolutely. I think it's important to also know that it's a dynamic world. It's where we have to be ready for the future. So it does make sense. And while there are solutions adopted, we see challenges. During the adoption, during the evaluation, adoption, and post the adoption as well. That's when, Triveni, my last question to you is: what have you identified as biggest challenges before and after adopting remote support solutions? And how do you suggest how Goto is helping overcome those challenges?
Sure. See, so to start off with, right, I think in terms of the challenges, I would come directly to post because that's, pre is obviously very well defined, and I'll come to that. But I think I'll start off with the post adoption. One of the biggest thing that we have seen, and it's not related to only remote support, right? Any new tool like say, Anil sir, CIOs like him introduced to the teams, right? The first and the foremost is resistance, right? A new tool or a new technology. People are comfortable using legacy systems or legacy way of working. So the first of challenges that we've seen is change management and adoption, right? So how do we tackle that is, to ensure that the vendor who's, sort of selling those tools need to have a very robust onboarding and training scheduled for the technicians and the admins, right? Obviously, to separate out the technicians and the admins training. Also, it's important that we create a lot of quick self-paced videos, which again, because now remember, we all have, what do I say, exhausted by looking at a lot of videos, webinars. We are all going through that screen fatigue, as they call it, right? So have very quick 30-second, 40-second tidbits of videos to help the technician to use the tool, right? And I think also the other thing, to help the IT heads and CIOs, to effectively calculate the ROIs, first of all, monitoring the usage of the tools, right? Because, like I said, again, it's all dependent on the way the technicians are going to use the management, and then technicians at the end of the day are going to go for low-hanging fruits, right? So looking at what features are being used and how they are being utilized, and how is it sort of measuring up to the metrics that was set up, right? And I think lastly, or one of the things that what we have seen is that help desk productivity measurement is one of the biggest, I think, KPIs for any IT department, right? So do we have some predefined metrics in place to measure that productivity? And if that is sort of aligned with the vendor, that also helps, sets a clear expectation in terms of what is expected and what should be the outcome, right? Like they say, begin with the end in mind. I think that will help clear, have a clear expectation as to where do we need to reach. One of the I would say implementation phase is very important to look at. I think I have to repeat what I said is integrations, right? The capability of the tools, or ability of the tools to integrate with your existing environment becomes extremely critical. The other thing is, specifically when it comes to remote help desk, right? I think almost, I would say at least around 40 to 50% of the questions are frequently asked, right? So it's a good thing to have a knowledge base of these FAQs and automate these tasks, or have ready reckoners created for these, or workflows created for these. But if you will be astonished that what we have seen is the biggest culprit in consuming time, the one of the very common requests, obviously if you go passwordless, that won't be an issue, is password reset, right? I think a lot of the IT desk tickets are towards, it's almost said that astonishing percentage, between 20 to 50% of the help desk queries are around password reset, right? So I think going passwordless is definitely a big big way to avoid this. But having said that, this is also, then these kind of queries shakes up your metrics again, right? So automating these would help show the effectiveness and the productivity of your help desk team. So these are some things.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Firstly, Mr. Nama, for sharing all the candid responses with us in terms of, your current setup, your challenges, and the roadmap. Right. It is definitely very valuable insights which a lot of CIOs can take through this episode. Thank you, Triveni, for giving us, your insights and the interactions that you've been having with CIOs, the perspectives of theirs on the remote support solution. So wonderful interaction with you both. Thank you once again for joining on this episode, and we look forward to talking to you both soon.
Thank you, Khushbu. Thank you, Anil sir. Thank you so much.